great silicon lie. Have you ever looked at a piece of consumer technology and realized you were witnessing a multi-billion-dollar hostage situation? Let's talk about the iPad. Specifically, let's look at the iPad Pro. If you read the marketing copy, Apple describes it as the ultimate instrument for creators, professionals, and visionaries. They pack this device with an M series chip, the exact same blazingly fast desktop architecture found inside their top-tier MacBooks. We're talking about silicon capable of editing multiple streams of raw 4K video, rendering complex 3D models in real time, and compiling massive code databases without breaking a sweat. The hardware engineering is, objectively speaking, an absolute masterpiece. And what does Apple let you do with all that world-class industrial strength horsepower? Virtually nothing. Unless your definition of professional work begins and ends with sketching a digital fruit basket or scrolling through high refresh rate Netflix streams, that desktop class processor is doing absolutely nothing but heating up a thin slab of aluminium. Apple has deliberately engineered a profound technological paradox, a mobile device with the brain of a supercomputer and the operational freedom of a corporate office copier. The Ferrari in a school zone. Buying an iPad today is exactly like walking into a luxury dealership, dropping a massive stack of cash on a brand new Ferrari and having your dealer weld your garage doors shut. They hand you the keys, smile warmly, and inform you that under the terms of your purchase agreement, you are legally only allowed to drive that hypercar back and forth across your driveway, and you can never go faster than 15 miles an hour. The moment you try to use an iPad like a real computer, you don't just hit a limitation, you slam head first into a digital straitjacket. You want a transparent, unrestricted file system where you can manage your data like an adult? Denied. You want to sideload an open source tool or an emulator or a niche utility that hasn't been blessed by Apple's corporate censors? Absolutely not. You want a real desktop browser that supports full development extensions? Keep dreaming. If you put a premium iPad next to a 6-year-old Samsung Galaxy phone, like an old Galaxy F20 FE, the contrast is humiliating for Apple. In terms of raw, unadulterated computing freedom, that old phone absolutely runs circles around a modern iPad. On a years-old Android device, you can connect to an external monitor, toggle on Samsung DeX, and suddenly have a literal desktop environment. You can manage local files, torrent assets, configure local web servers, run whatever code you want. On Android, you own the hardware. On iPad, you are merely paying a premium subscription fee for the privilege of carrying Apple's property around in your backpack. The billion-dollar gatekeeper. This software starvation isn't a design oversight. It isn't a mistake made by engineers who ran out of time. This is cold, calculated, highly profitable business strategy driven by two corporate motives: protecting the MacBook and enforcing the App Store monopoly. Let's look at the MacBook problem first. Apple knows exactly what would happen if they gave iPadOS a true desktop file system, proper multi-Windows multitasking, and unrestricted external monitor support. The iPad Pro would immediately become the perfect modular computer. Millions of students, writers, and lightweight developers would buy an iPad, a keyboard dock, and never touch a traditional laptop again. Apple would lose massive chunks of MacBook sales. By deliberately crippling iPadOS, they ensure that if you want a portable screen and a real computer, you are forced to buy both. There is Then there's the App Store tax. Apple's trillion-dollar empire relies heavily on its ironclad grip over iOS software distribution. By locking the operating system down and banning users from installing apps from the open web, Apple guarantees that every single digital transaction must pass through their toll booth. They take a massive 15 to 30% cut of everything. If they open up iPadOS and allow you to install software freely, the way you do on a Mac or a PC, they lose control of that revenue stream. Security and simplicity are marketing buzzwords they use to sell this setup, but the control and ecosystem lock-in are the actual products. The WebKit nightmare. But the deepest, most agonizing circle of Apple hell is reserved for people who actually build modern internet. Web developers. Every single web browser you can download on the iPad today, whether its icon says Google Chrome, Mozilla, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, or Opera, is an absolute lie. Outside of specific regulatory zones, these apps are nothing more than Safari wearing a corporate trench coat. Apple explicitly mandates that every mobile browser on their operating system must use Apple WebKit, Apple's own proprietary rendering engine. You aren't debugging your website for Chrome on iOS, you're debugging it for Safari twice. Among the development community, WebKit is widely regarded as the modern-day Internet Explorer because Apple faces zero actual competition on its mobile platforms. They have historically been incredibly slow to implement modern web standards. Advanced CSS layouts, complex web APIs, and progressive web apps regularly glitch, lag, or completely break on Apple devices while running flawlessly everywhere else. Developers are forced to waste millions of unbillable hours writing specialized code patches and hacks just to prevent their websites from exploding on an iPad screen. Why does Apple keep WebKit so intentionally limited? Because a highly capable browser is an existential threat to the App Store. If a developer can build a flawless lightning-fast web app that runs entirely inside a browser tab, they don't need to build an iOS app. If they don't build an iOS app, Apple can't tax them. This is a textbook example of artificial technological stagnation designed to protect a corporate monopoly. The school issue hell. This entire corporate bottleneck becomes a daily nightmare when you are forced to use an iPad in an educational environment. If you're a student using a school-issued tablet, you aren't just dealing with Apple's standard restrictions, you're trapped under a secondary layer of lockdown known as Mobile Device Management, or MDM. School IT departments take a device that was already severely restricted and turn it into a glorified, expensive glass brick. They lock down the App Store entirely, disable basic system settings, block communication tools, and limit browser access to a handful of approved portals. It's a deeply frustrating experience for anyone who actually likes technology or wants to learn how computers work. If you're a student trying to learn computer science, coding, or web development on a school iPad, the local hardware is practically useless to you. You cannot install a local terminal, you cannot run a local development environment, and you cannot test code natively. Developers have to turn to cloud-based environments like GitHub Codespaces, Gitpod, or Replit. By opening these tools inside the Safari tab, you're essentially streaming a video feed of a real open Linux computer running on a remote server farm. The iPad isn't doing any of the actual work, just acting as a dumb terminal because its own operating system refuses to let you compute. The law versus malicious compliance. The global tech community has protested this lockdown for over a decade, and antitrust regulators are finally stepping in to force Apple to change. But watching Apple comply with international law is like watching a spoiled toddler being forced to share their toys. In the European Union, the Digital Markets Act officially forced Apple to allow alternative app stores, app sideloading, and true non-WebKit browser engines. Governments in the United Kingdom and Japan have passed similar laws with deadlines hitting through late 2026 and 2027. Regulators are successfully proving that Apple's security arguments were entirely hollow. However, Apple's strategy has shifted to extreme malicious compliance. To bypass the spirit of the law, Apple introduced a heavy web of regional restrictions and fragmented business terms. For example, in the EU, they replaced the old flat commission with a complex layered system featuring a core technology commission, taking a permanent 5% cut on digital goods across all distribution paths, including alternative marketplaces. They also region lock these features. If an EU citizen travels outside of Europe for a few weeks, their third-party app stores automatically shut down. They are making the process of escaping their ecosystem as technically and financially painful as possible for developers and users alike. Conclusion: the illusion of ownership. When you strip away the sleek aluminium enclosures, the stunning liquid retina displays, and the sweeping orchestral music of their product launch videos, you are left with a fundamental question about tech ownership. Who actually owns the device inside your backpack? If a company retains the right to dictate what code can execute on your processor, what browser engine you are allowed to read the internet with, and what files you are permitted to save to your local storage, you didn't actually buy a computer. You bought a very expensive piece of glass, and you paid a premium price for the privilege of carrying Apple's property around for them. Until global legislation completely breaks the walls of the ecosystem down, the iPad will remain a tragic monument to wasted silicon, a powerhouse machine trapped inside a corporate cage.